Unit 3, The Kings of Israel, the United Monarchy under Saul, David, and Solomon. So if we jump back to our timeline, we see a little bit about where we're going to be heading in this course, down, looking at some of the events coming forward. But right now, we're really only concerned with this one, this time of the kings. And so as we zoom in, we can even see the names of some of the significant events that we are most famous in the Bible, David and Goliath and things like that. But what consists of this time period? Well, there are three kings of the United Monarchy, the United Kingdom of Israel, and they are, of course, Saul, David, and Solomon. So Saul is the first king of Israel, and we're going to look at him in a second. And he is, of course, followed by David, who is called in Scripture a man after God's own heart. And then you have Solomon, who is the son of David and the only direct descendant of the throne, and he is the builder of the temple and known for that, as well as many other things which we'll look at. So these are the kings of Israel, and this is a really, really important time period in Israel's history. But before we really look at these three kings, there's somebody that we have to look at first. And this is the person who's very important in Scripture, and he's the one who really marks the transition from the time of the judges into the time of the monarchy, and that is, of course, Samuel. So let's pause real quick on the kings, and let's just jump back really quick to the time period before. This is the cycle and the judges, and I wanted to review this really quick because a lot happens here. You see these teal pictures here where it says oppression, oppression, oppression up there at the top. Those are every time God used a neighbor to oppress the children of Israel, and this is a long time period, and the ones down there at the bottom are the judges. And so we see the cycle, but I wanted to review it really quick because this happens 7 times. So first, the children of Israel fall into sin. They forget God and they worship idols. God then uses an enemy to go in and to subjugate them, to oppress them. After that, the people cry out to God and he responds because God's faithful to his covenants and he brings deliverance, right? He will raise up a judge to go in and to now wipe out the oppressor. And it was just followed by a period of rest. And then that goes right back into sin, and it happens over and over and over. It happens 7 times during this time period. So, for example, you got the oppressor up there, the Aramean oppression. God, when they cried out, God raised up Othniel, the first judge, to rescue them, and he did, and there's a time of rest, and then they go back into sin, and then they're oppressed by the Moabites, and then they cry out, and God raises up Ehud, and then there's a time of rest, and they go back into sin, and then the Canaanites, and then it kind of goes on and on and on, and that's why we have people like Shamgar and Deborah as judges. It just goes down the timeline, and this is a period of over and over again where this happens, this cycle happens, and you see there's some significant judges that you have probably heard about, people like Gideon and Samson. We're not going to get into them, but this is where they fall in the overall timeline. And there's a lot of times where this God is being faithful to his covenants, but Israel will go into idolatry, and then God will raise up, and there's just over and over again. But then we get to this person called Samuel. And so Samuel is very important, and we're going to look at him because there's a couple key things that we need to know about Samuel. The first thing that we need to remember is that Samuel was a judge. He was actually the last of the judges, but he was also the first great prophet of Israel. He was the first one that really took the office of prophet. Now, this is going to be very important going forward, which we'll look at in a second. But what's important about Samuel is he marks kind of the transition from the time of the judges to the creation of the United Kingdom of Israel. And so if we look at the timeline again and we just focus down on Samuel, he actually transitions us from one time period into this time period that we're now going to examine, which is the time of the kings. And so what I want to do is I want to dive into who Samuel is and why he matters. So in the next unit, let's take a look at Samuel, the first prophet of Israel.